Hey there, YouTubers. We're just booting into Jupyter Notebooks slash lab, my dashboard for any high school worth its salt. That's an expression that comes back from back when money was pegged to salt, not just gold, right? Salt makes a good, if it's scarce, anything that's hard to come by, right? So Roman soldiers tend to be paid in salt or other coin, and then the people that were being kind of invaded were forced to pay taxes in the very coin that the soldiers were given, so that people had to do commerce with the soldiers, and that helps solidify the economy in the wake of the ongoing invasion, that kind of thing. Now, I don't think the NATO reflex is capable of, containing the inner Rome. I think the neo-Roman would be better than neoliberal in terms of terminology. Having grown up in Rome and having some appreciation for the history, I think Americans just need more to understand how Roman they are, not just Catholic, not just Latin, but very imperial. And I don't, take on that guilt myself. I feel like I got exempted. I got to grow up all over the world as a lucky guy. So thank you. Good childhood for me. And I don't feel especially like a Roman, but I do appreciate Romans today. Now, this is Margaret Fuller, by the way. Think of her going back to Rome. I'm going to talk about Margaret Fuller in a minute. She's the grand aunt, or the great aunt, sorry, of Buckminster Fuller, Margaret Fuller, Buckminster Fuller. And what just came in, a poster, a movie poster, I'm not even fitting it on the screen, and I respond, this is on Trim Tab Archive, that it's not a movie I'm part of making. Like, I have not been involved in this project. So I'm curious about it. I have very little knowledge about what's going on there. And how much tetrahedron stuff is it going to have? How much tetrahedron stuff? How much synergetics? And that's kind of what I talk about in this particular email or posting to an archive, where I talk mostly about thinking out loud, which you can get now for free here over your internet connection, which was another, I think, a very important film about Bucky. It's a good film. It's well made. It's a lot about it that I like, but I think overall I considered it too melancholy and too beside the point, because I don't buy what the architects tell us, which is that the dome is what we should remember Bucky for more than the geometry that I'm holding up here. By the way, this littler guy can go inside the bigger guy. If you're studying the S module, as some of you are, asynchronously, we're having back and forth, then it helps if you look at the bigger jitterbug as our volume 20. Remember this now, you know this by now. You've got your memory palace. A lot of you, it's like very Sesame Street for me to keep coming back to this 18.514. So it's this volume 4 that the 2.5 cube octahedron goes into as faces flush, right? I don't have enough hands, so I might have to use my imagination. Try it again. Collapse down to volume 4. Do you think I should edit out that? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to hit subscribe and buy every piece of merch I ever show. I'm kind of kidding there. I do have information on where to buy this, but I'm not selling it. So you put this little guy inside that with the triangular faces flush to the octahedrons flush faces, and clearly this has volume 2.5, and it also jitterbugs and so forth. There's in the S module world, there's another step in the jitterbug that we talk about in other videos. Now, to sharing books, I'm still working on Don Bradell's book, which is all about neutrinos. I love neutrinos. I know nothing about them. Every time I read about neutrinos, I know less. But there's a lot about quarks and stuff here. And I'm very interested in that. And he wants us to have new visualizations to go with our studies of quantum mechanics. And he has attached great mnemonic value to field structures, he calls them, that look more or less like this, but can have different polyhedrons inside and stuff. And how can this be helpful? You might, well, that looks like string theory. No, it's not string theory. It's his own deal, and I'm looking at it. I get stuff to look at without necessarily being like, I'm not like what I think of when I think of CERN and the colliders there. I think of hypertext. It was that fusion and that scattering, the creation of hypertext, Tim Berners-Lee at CERN. That's what I think of CERN. Words are particles, like pew pew pew, right? So another book, Alison Bechdel. Got this from my daughter. She's understands contemporary culture from her perspective. It's always useful to have smart kids who study because they can help you catch up. And Allison does a really good job telling the story, starting back in Wordsworth and Coleridge, Romantics, England, and how they liked the outdoors and hiking in particular, and just walking up a mountain for the heck of it, right? That's a big deal in Romanticism. Coming to worship nature more than think of it as something to be subdued, something to win over against, right? And then comes the transcendentalists, and again, Allison talks a lot about Margaret Fuller in this book. She makes the connection to Bucky Fuller. She talks about the Whole Earth Catalog, Gary Snyder, Jack Kerouac, influence of Eastern religions, Zen in particular, and it's all autobiographical, and it's all place-based and drawn as a comic or manga or whatever. So, in terms of pedagogy, I'm very on the same page as this. And I really like that graphic novel, or excuse me, it's more of a didactic work about Fuller's energy slave concept, which has to do with how we don't need slaves anymore, lest you misunderstand. Like the whole idea of automation was to free us to go about our business as scholars and to not have to wash exactly that many dishes anymore or spend all our time making clothes for ourselves. Someday we would have factories and they would make so much durable clothing that we could actually get by recycling a lot, right? We would not always have to buy new, buy new, buy new. That was partly how we were going to retire, is by not even caring if it was new or not. But all that gets subverted, right, by the people who really, really need you to buy new stuff all the time. New, new, new. No matter how good your life is, you have to redundantly buy new cups, new saucers. Eh. So I challenge all that. I'm an open source guy. You could say I'm kind of a revolutionary, but who really cares, right? This is not a channel about all my strategies. That would be, well, it is a little bit, right? And so where do I come down on the issues of the day? I think Europe is being very immature and holding us back with all this stupid stuff about gas. It's very boring, actually. And the whole thing with Iran, I really, really have a low opinion of my peers, my cronies who grew up alongside me and now are in positions of quote unquote authority. Gosh, what a horrible, incompetent group you are. Huh, amazing. All right, but go about your business and we'll talk again.